$1.2 trillion more in the red over the next 10 years. The independent Congressional Budget Office now saying when you add the president's budget up, our federal deficits for this decade will hit nearly $10 trillion. And Toby's saying, what other proof do we need that we can't afford the Democrats' nearly $1 trillion health care plan?
Well, the proof comes from the CBO. These are people who, if you look at the rate of miss that they've had on every other study they've done, if they're saying 1.2 trillion, the number's probably like 3 trillion. And the number one reason is the assumptions they've baked into these health options, other plans they're talking about. The Congress would actually have to follow what they said, and the Congress has never, on Medicare, any of these cuts, ever made the cuts they said they were going to make. It's simple.
Mark, how can we afford this?
How can we afford this? It will save money. The health care bill is not a budget buster, it's a budget booster, according to the exact same Congressional Budget Office that Republican Chuck Grassley calls God. They said it will save $1 trillion, more than $1 trillion. And you can argue, is it $1.2 trillion? Is Obama's plan only $800 million? The point is we save money at the same time as consumers save money. This is good stuff and good for the budget.
Pat, my little quiet, smart Pat. Cost containment,
you guys want to get a room?
Is that an issue?
The issue is we can't afford to not do health care reform. But this isn't health care reform. It's health care coverage expansion. Those are two very, very different things. Health care reform means blowing up the fee-for-service system and paying for results, paying for health outcomes, not paying for doing procedures. But that involves a radical reworking of the entire system that is not what has ever been on the table.
And right now,
unfortunately.
And right now, it seems like the public option, Eric, might still be on the table.
Well, here's what we're hearing, Brenda, that the public option may be on the table for people who are uninsured. People who are currently insured can continue to do whatever they're going to do. The problem is, here's what happens. If you open up that Pandora's box, people who are uninsured get this public option. They're getting insurance at a lower rate. So people who pay their insurance premiums and say, well, I don't like this anymore. I'm paying too much. I'm going off that. I'm going to get on the public option. Before long, you have all, not the 30 million, all 155 million people who are being insured or more, 300 million if it's the whole country, pushed bulldozed right into the open arms of Obamacare.
Okay, Mark, get in there.
That's a great admission.
Go ahead.
That's a great admission. Eric admitted that public care is cheaper than the private care.
And you know what else it does?
Get the better deal, Eric?
It drives the free enterprise system of health insurance out the window. You want to nationalize autos, now you want to nationalize health care. What's next? Sandwiches?
What's wrong with giving people a cheaper price? You know what? When I have my gas or I get my electricity or I get my water, the government regulates it and it makes it cheaper. I'm for that.
Costs
okay, so you like
regulation.
All right, come on, Gary B. Is somebody going to be paying for this? Is that you and me?
Well, first of all, the public, stuff like Medicare is not cheaper than private insurance. It appears to be cheaper because government, like all government agencies, are able to hide a lot of their costs. They share buildings. They don't have to do marketing. And they don't have to do things like cost control either, some of those other administrative things. So, sure, I mean, if you're like Medicare, you can claim, wow, we have this great system. But, of course, a lot of these government things, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, are basically bankrupt. So, Mark can claim that it's low cost, but it's basically price controls. And at some point, it's going to explode. The other thing is when this is scored, this bill with these big, let me finish.
Surpluses.
When this bill is scored, of course, what you have there is 10 years of savings versus only 6 years of cost. If scored on a decade-by-decade basis, especially going into the second decade, this Obamacare is going to run a trillions of dollar deficit. I mean, this is just going to be ungodly expensive. And Eric's right. It, by some studies, could drive out half of private insurance, all because it's government-mandated price controls, and that's not going to work.
Let Mark get in there quickly. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if it drives out private insurance, it's only because people are choosing it. It is a public option. It is their choice.
No, but they're choosing it because it's a government monopoly.
Like
not
Medicare.
Because it's more efficient.
94% of Americans on it like it. It's a good program. It works.
Mark,
why do people like it?
Because it's cost
Do you want to get rid of Medicare?
It's broke.
Mark, the way the plan is set up, according to the latest numbers, the government would mandate extraordinary coverage that if I'm an insurance company, I would have to offer at the state, at the self-directed level. If that happens, the rates for the private business go through the roof, and it's an absolute job killer, and your whole idea goes down the toilet.
10 seconds to Eric. Last word.
You can't just drive half of a $2.5 trillion industry out and into the arms of government. They're too big already. Even
If you
more
want rates to go up,
power
it's a great
corrupts,
idea.
absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Lawmakers telling you to rat out your boss and friends who cheat on their taxes. So why did they just protect their own staffers who aren't paying theirs? More D.C. hypocrisy after this.
Sex offender.
Tax cheats still on the loose in D.C. Democrats just blocking a move to fire their congressional staffers who aren't giving the tax man his due. But at the same time, they're encouraging all of us to turn in our colleagues and friends cheating on taxes. Gary B., you say fire their... well, I'll let you say it.
I won't say it either, but I share your sentiment. Look, I think, look, just to put it into context, this is not just one or two people, Brenda. There's over 600 staffers on Capitol Hill that owe more than $8 million in taxes. Look, you know, I'm not trying to be a hard guy, but I think if you are in charge of making the laws of the land, you should live by the laws of the land. And just like the IRS, by the way, you don't pay your taxes, you get fired. I think it should apply to everyone on Capitol Hill, congressmen, senators, and these staffers who aren't paying. That should be the bottom line. Hey, look, as you point out, everyone else has to pay. These people should pay too.
Yeah, it applies actually just to the IRS. And why not you guys on the Hill, Mark?
Well, if it's intentional and it's egregious, absolutely fire them. But it depends. If I fail to declare a $2 tip, should I go to jail? Should I be fired? I don't think so. Let's see if they're serious and they're intentional. Absolutely.
I don't know, Toby. What if I almost kill somebody?
Well, look, evidently Charlie Rangel is sort of our leader in this deal. So let's just draw the line there. If you do anything worse than Charlie Rangel, probably you should get fired. I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's good because Tom DeLay did a lot worse than Charlie Rangel.
I think they should be fired whether it's 50 cents or 50 grand. It really doesn't matter. They cheated. But
come on,
you can hardly blame them, though. Tim Geithner, he's the enforcer of tax law. Guess what? TurboTax Timmy. He did it too.
Pat, what do you think of this?
Yeah, but Eric, it was complicated for Tim.
Yeah.
Well, now
For Tim Geithner, it was very complicated.
Hold on,
Oh,
Pat, what do you think?
All I'll say is that there is a difference between mistakes and between intentional cheating.
Okay, well, there you go. That's it. Why
Okay.
not? Why not, Mark?
And by the way,
No, I agree. It depends on what, though. If you intentionally fail to declare a W-2, that's pretty serious. If you forget about a $5 dividend check that your grandmother gave you, I don't think that's intentional.
Levine,
But
Rangel
we know-
writes
Wait
the
a
tax
second.
code, and he says he didn't realize he was supposed to pay taxes on the villas that he got rent from. It's BS. They're just complete thieves, liars, and cheats.
Yeah, but he's a
Well,
really
and we
good
know
guy.
it's
He's a
not-
nice guy.
we
We don't
know
want to
it's
go after him.
not-
That's not fair.
We
He's a
know
nice
it's not
guy.
$5 and $10 here or there. We know it's millions of dollars divided by maybe it's 1,000 people, but it's not $5, $10 here or there. The other thing
Get
is
the
if you make a
serious
mistake,
people,
the
absolutely.
IRS sends you a
Hold on.
letter and then
Let
you
Gary
pay your
finish.
taxes. Well, the other thing is, you make a mistake, the IRS says, hey, you missed this, you got to pay the taxes. You're considered paying your taxes. These are taxes that are not paid. And by the way, it's not just Capitol Hill. It's the Navy, it's the Postal Service. It's across a wide swath of federal government.
All right.
Look, I think, how about anyone being fired, government or private, if they don't pay their taxes?
All right.
How about that?
Okay, there we go. And we say thank
Who
you.
would do the
We
firing?
say thank you to Mark for joining us. That was fun.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Brenda.
Up next.
That's 171.